Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay. Mm, I don't know. So this week we continue on what chapter already? This one, chapter four. Chapter four, right? Am I correct? So we did part one last week, and today we'll continue on to finish up the lecture. Okay. Lecture four. Okay. So lecture four, we will finish this up today. So next week we will cover chapter five, finish chapter five, so that week seven we can go for you can do your midterm test. Okay, so we will discuss about midterm test for this course after we finish the lecture today. So can we start?
Okay.
Okay. So last week we already just recap lah, ya. Recap on what we have discussed last week. So we have looked at design guidelines on how we present our system according to human cognitive. Okay, so we look at cognition and the core cognitive aspects. So today we will look at memory. Okay, memory, also recognition, and then we have discussed about attention and the design guidelines for attention, and we have looked at different type of website or interface, and alignment and layout. How do we work with alignment and layout? Spacing and alignment, and then we have looked at perception. We have discussed about perception based on human cognition, the design guidelines for perception. So in this one, we will also use the same example later on. Contrast, the text type. Okay, so now this one is Gestalt law of perception. And so today we look at another Gestalt law of perception. So we have this is the last slide we looked at last week. So this week we look at the next Gestalt law of perception. So still under perception of according to human cognition. So we look at continuity. Okay, so another law and another item under this Gestalt law of perception. We have continuity. So we as a human, we we look at things like what we see using our eyes. We perceive like what we see here. We perceive a smooth continuous pattern as one rather than disjoint and interrupted one. So let's take this one as example for now. Okay, the left side picture. So what does this continuity means? So when you look at this picture, because of the color, you perceive this as one stick, right? You don't look at this empty circle here, but you perceive this as a continuous pattern. So you when you look at it, you can directly imagine like this is one long stick without a hole in the center. Also another one blue or purple color. Is it blue or purple? So you look at this as a continuous pattern. It's one stick, one blue stick, and then one orange stick. Okay, so we we don't look at the interruption in this figure. Okay, so we tend to do that. So that's how this continuity is applied to cognition, to human cognition. And another example here, another picture. So you see, like this one, what we see here, we can imagine like the next pattern will be the same, right? So we imagine it as a smooth pattern. So we see it as a continuity of what we see on the screen. So let's look at a real life example. So this is an example of a view that you can get on YouTube. So the continuity is useful here so that your eyes can easily naturally follow the elements that's arranged along this continuous line. Okay, so when you click on this arrow here, you will go to the next element in this list. Okay, so this is these elements here. We perceive this as a unit. Okay, perceive this as a unit. So this all these are videos in YouTube. So this button here, it represent continuity um, in your system. Because when you click on this, when the user click on this, you will see similar view, a similar view of the preview of the video. You will see the preview of the video, like snapshot of the video, and you will see the title, the title, and also the view and the duration when this video was uploaded. So you see here, it's all very similar. So we perceive like what our perception would be when we click on this button here. You will see the same format as what you see here, because these items that we have here, we perceive it as a one unit. Okay, so that's for continuity. So another one under this Gestalt law of perception, we look at similarity. Okay, similarity. So this is the same example, microwave. So the elements that appear similar are perceived as one unit. So the one touch control is under one part, the auto weight defrost is at one part, and the time power is at, and the numbers way to touch is at one part. So elements usually on our system, we want to present them on our system, especially for our UI user interface. Usually we want to use same color or maybe same shape, and we want to group elements together it it that the user can see it as a one category. Okay, so similarity is when we put in units, or we put in elements in one group as a category. So let's look at the example here. So this is an example of similarity. So similarity here, we have three sections or three categories. So tell about yourself. So the user will directly know that this part is about themselves. Okay, the name, gender, birthday, live in, the postal code. And then the next one would be about your ID and your password. So here, this part, the user already know that you will need to provide information regarding your ID and also your password. And then the last part, the last category would be if you forget your ID or your password, you will get the elements what you will set in case you forget your ID or your password. So we put in elements that's related or that is similar in a category so that the user find user friendly. They know what to expect, what to key in into the field. Yeah, so that's for similarity. So we have looked at continuity, similarity, and the next one. Okay, so this one is actually the one the our tutorial. Okay, so Noel already has Noel, right? Answer the question for this one. Figure ground.
I.
Yeah, so we have discussed this in the previous tutorial. So this figure ground is actually under Gestalt law of perception. It's called figure ground. Okay, so the whole is greater than the sum of its part. So if you see here this logo here, Hope for African Children Initiative. So if you only see the orange color, you will see a mother and a child. Okay, but if you see you look at the white color only, it's representing the Africa map. Okay, so um, this is in graphic design. It's very useful in graphic design, but still we can apply it to UI as well. Okay, so our mind separates the visual field into the foreground, we have the foreground and the background. Yeah, the foreground and background, we perceive things when we look at the background. We perceive things differently when we actually look at the foreground. So now I want you to look at this FedEx. Okay, so use this use this law or use this perception. Look at this logo here. I want you to tell me where if you can find an arrow anak panah.
Between the E and the
Between the
X.
E and the X.
Oh, so fast. Yeah, this one, right? Do you see it, Kelvin? It's
See
here.
the E and X. Oh, that thing. Oh, I saw it. It's
Yeah,
hard to notice that one.
yeah. Me also. At first, I also like where is the arrow. Then, like, yeah, if you like apply this figure ground law, this perception, you will actually directly see it. So if you look at the color, find the color, like they definitely know error, right? But then you look at the background, you will definitely see the arrow sign. Okay, so FedEx, this is a very genius design for a logo, which they actually represent. It's a forwarding company, right? So an arrow also represent forwarding, like forwarding things lah, right? So that's why this FedEx is it's very like very clever one, very clever graphic design. They include this figure ground, that's the law of perception into their logo. Okay, so you can also apply this to your UI as well. So you want your user to have to focus on the foreground, right? So like for example, like this one, when you key in wrong Wi-Fi password, you will get pop up. So usually or generally in UI, in user interface design, we use pop-up to get users' attention and they like so that the user know which one to read. So now like this one, you were told that Wi-Fi password is incorrect on the foreground, and then this one also, um, you are asked to log in before you can access the website at the background. Okay, so that's for bigger ground. Right. So that's for perception. We have finished discussion on perception. So next we will talk about memory, human memory. Okay. So human memory, typically we have three types of human memory. We have the sensory memory, SM, and then short-term memory, or the working memory, the current memory, also known as STM or WM. And the third one will be long-term memory, LTM. Okay, long-term memory. So all this has its own characteristics. So this is our typically or generally how our memory works. Okay, so we have the sensory memory, short-term memory, and also long-term memory. Okay, so we'll discuss about each one of these in detail throughout the lecture today. Okay, so if any of this human memory is overloaded, so it can lead to efficiency, anxiety, and stress of the human. So that's why um, you like if you are too tired, you will be inefficient, you will get anxiety or you will be stressed. Okay, so that means if your mind is overloaded, if your memory is overloaded. So here for sensory memory, a little bit on sensory memory. So this is the area of conscious memory that deals with information from the sense, okay, like from our eyes. So what we see, what we censor using our eyes, what we censor through our ears, what we censor through our nose, what we censor through our haptic channel, like our touch, those are what we call the sensory memories. Okay, so like when we look at with our eyes, like you look with our eyes, or let's take an example of ears. Okay, like your ears, you hear someone sneeze, for example. Okay, so you have hear someone sneeze, so your it will be stored at your sensory memory. Okay, so because you hear it, right? The nose, when you smell something delicious, okay, so you will store that in your sensory memory. Okay, so that's for sensory memory. So it actually relates towards giving input to the short term memory as well as long term memory. Okay, so we go to the next one, short term memory. So now we discuss on short term memory. So for our short-term memory, as the name state here, it it is short-term. So this area of memory, it hold limited information. Okay, limited information. It's either 7 plus 2 or 7 minus 2 chunks or pieces of information. So we'll discuss on chunking later on. um, in this STM, in this short-term memory, we can only hold limited information for a very short period of time. So this is according to a research by George Miller in 1956. Okay. So example here. So if I ask you now, you look at these numbers 9152338177629922 blah 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 until 20. So you look at this for 10 seconds. Okay, I give you 10 seconds and you look away and you try to cite these words, cite this number. Try to cite the numbers. Like I give you 10 seconds from now, you look at all these numbers. Okay, start now. Okay, 10 second pass. So now you look away, don't look at the numbers and try to memorize, try to like cite the numbers. Okay, so you have 1 and 5, 2, something, something, and at the end is 20. Okay, so when you look at things like that, our memory actually it's a short-term memory. So what you can memorize is maybe only the first five numbers at the beginning, or the two or three or four numbers at the end, right? Did you experience that? You only remember like the first three or the first four, or the last three or the last four.
Um, I can remember until 6
6.
only.
Oh, yeah. How about the rest, Noel, Calvin?
Only until the 3, the single digit.
Okay, so that's why always depends to your every human is different, right? So been talking about human capabilities, right? So every human is different. So that's why you really need to understand your user. So for in this case, for short-term memory, so some people like Farah can memorize up until number 6. Okay, so maybe because you look at this like you really look at this when you have the 10 seconds, and then you can also like you just like glance through everything and you store anything you get in your short-term memory. Okay, so that's how short-term memory works. Similar to this one also. So when you read this like for 10 seconds and then you try to like cite again in your mind what have you seen on the screen. So you can try this as also see if you can remember. So you try this again, 10 second, read this sentence, this text, and you try to memorize and try to look away and cite the words. Okay, 10 seconds from now. Start. Okay, 10 second pause. Try to look away. How many can you memorize? I can only memorize cat house until people. Oh,
Until red.
oh, that's good. Noel
Yeah, until red.
until right as well. Okay. So see, every human are different. So you might also there is also people like can memorize this like everything in a short term. When they just look at it like for a short time and um, they can memorize up until the end. So those people uh, somehow these people do exist. So they have like good memory lah, good for them. So if you can memorize everything then good for you, but we are not talking about like if you can memorize up until 9 chunks or 9 pieces of information here, like oh I can memorize up until 99 for example, right? So I'm a genius. So um we don't really like we don't really level people like genius if you can like finish everything. So it all depends to our brain or our mind. So that's why I say many times different people have different capabilities, right? Like the memory, like what you all did just now. You can see like different person will have different short-term memory. So for this STM, it has a very limited capacity, not limited to this, but this is what George Myler has accomplished in his research. This is the summary of the result that he can summarize that this STM can only store 7 plus minus 2 chunk pieces of information in this STM. And another characteristic of this STM is that the information that's stored in this short-term memory, it can be accessed rapidly. So what you memorize in this memory, you can access it like automatically. But it can also decay or lost rapidly. Like now, if I ask you again, you look away and you try to cite the numbers again, or maybe you only remember the first number. Okay, so because we already like past the situation. So just now, if I like we are here already, right, discussing on this, then I will ask you to uh, just look away and try to cite the numbers again. Definitely, maybe you will not be able to get up until 6, or you will not be able to cite up until the word right. Yeah, so we can access it rapidly, but we can also lose the information rapidly. Yeah, so that's for short-term memory. Yeah, so different people will have different cognition or different capabilities on this memory. So now let's look at long-term memory. So this is where the area of memory on in our mind, in our brain, where information is stored and can be retrieved over a very long periods of time. Okay, so this is where we store our memory for a long term. So usually the capacity of LTM is infinite. Okay, and then because of this long-term memory, we will need time to retrieve the information that is stored in this long-term memory. So our long-term memory, like last year's CNY, for example, how did you celebrate your CNY last year? So you need to like sit down and think about it. Like what did I do during Chapkome last year, right? So you need time to retrieve the info that you store in your long-term memory. So you might not have any memory of your Cap Gome celebration last year, maybe. So if you have, you will need time to retrieve it. So our brain is very smart. You only want to memorize what you want to remember, right? So maybe during Cap Gome last year you didn't do anything. There was no dinner whatsoever because of the pandemic. So maybe you don't have anything to remember, or you don't have anything to put in your memory. So they can be like, even if like you use a long time to think of what you have done last year's Chapkome, but you cannot think of anything, that means you did not have any memory. You did not have any long-term memory for that particular event. Okay, so another thing like how when you want to retrieve information in your long-term memory, like when you are in high school, when you were doing your diploma, for example, right? So you need time to recall or to retrieve those information that is stored in this long-term memory. So the information that is stored in this long-term memory, it can become less accessible after a long period of time. So let's say before pandemic, I also cannot remember the life before pandemic. Like now also, like I for myself, I cannot, I don't even like remember how I go through the 2020 and 2021. So those, because maybe during the time we only have one event, the pandemic is ongoing. So I don't have any information that I stored in my long-term memory for the past 2 years. Example, so your part might be different. So maybe let's say like what I asked you during the class this morning, right? Like I asked you, do you prefer online or face to face? So you also don't know, right? You also like, how do I do exams during for face to face? How do you go to the exam venue? You also cannot remember like, what do I bring? Do I bring my student card? Do I bring my IC? So when I talk like this, like I'm feeding you with the information, then you can recall, right? Then you can retrieve. So because it's the information of going to the campus face to face, doing the exam face to face, it's less accessible for the past 2 years. So it's less the memory of you going to the campus and doing face to face communication with your friends and with your lecturer. It's less accessible last 2 years. So um, you need time to like to think again how those things has happened in the past, right? So this is for long-term memory. So now let's look at a figure here. We have a figure to um, to show you how the three types of human memory works. Okay, so when you want to remember things, it involves retrieving stored knowledge in human brain. So usually, the stored knowledge usually we store it at our long-term memory. Okay, so from the sensory input, okay, from sensory input, we will get the sensory memory. So some of the things, the sensory memory, if there is a thing that we grab our attention, if we have attention grab things or information that grab our attention, we will put it in a short term memory. Okay, we will put it in a short term memory. So let's say you are learning a new knowledge. Okay, so when you're actually learning new knowledge, without you realizing, you're actually encoding the information. So you encode the new knowledge, encode it into your long-term memory. Okay. So let's say, for example, like when you want to go for your final exam, right? So because you got the information, you learn about, like, for example, like chapter 5, you learn today, uh, chapter 4, sorry, you learn chapter 4, and then tomorrow you will, then the next 2 weeks you will have uh, midterm test, right? So during the midterm test, you will be um, you will be retrieving the information, the knowledge that you learned previously from the long-term memory. So it will go to your short-term memory. Like you, like in question one, it asks you question one asks you to differentiate between the three types of memory that human had. So you retrieve again the information that you encode from your previous lecture. You get it, you retrieve it, and then it will be stored in your short-term memory. Then you write down your answer, right? So you only remember during that time. So that's what we call short-term memory. So you will need time to think, like you look at you look at the ceiling, or you look at the apa ni, dinding, look at the dinding, apa dinding na, short term memory loss, dinding pun tidak ingat what's in English. Okay, so every time like you have something in front of you, your short term memory is actually functioning, like it's currently active. Okay, so that's why we need rehearsal or revision, right? So if you have done revision previously, let's say tomorrow is your midterm test, the previous night you do revision, okay, but last minute revision. So some students are more like they can remember well if they do their revision last minute. Some student will require some student they need to do revision like every day in order for them to remember the terms or the knowledge that they have learned in the class, right? So different students or different people, different human will have different capabilities in remembering things. So this is how typically we store information in our brain. Okay, so we have sensory input, it will be sent into the sensory memory. So unattended information will be lost, like the things that you don't give in apa tu, attention, you don't give attention, it will lost, like just lost like that. And the thing that give grab your attention will be stored in the short term memory. Okay, so here if you want to encode the memory that you have here, you want to learn the knowledge, like you learn the knowledge and you want to remember it, you will encode the information and store it in the long term memory. Yeah, so some information may be lost over time. So in your exam, if in your exam, like it will cover from chapter 1 until chapter 10, for example, right? So you already chapter 1 already, like for the past 1 or 2 months, you already studied the chapter 1 for 2 months. So it will take time to remember what you have learned in the first lecture, right? So if you need time to retrieve the information from long-term memory. So in order for you to remember the knowledge, you will use the short-term memory. You keep rehearsing or keep doing revision, so you will remember, you encode, and you kept it in long-term memory. So another figure here showing you the comparison of between STM and LTM. So the capacity and the excess and the decay. So the capacity of short-term memory is limited, usually 7 plus 2 or minus 2. It's whereas for long-term memory, it's unlimited. And then access for short-term memory is fast. Long-term memory, the access is slow. And for decay, like loss of information, when you store information in STM, short-term memory is fast, and in long-term memory, you will lose the information slow. Okay, so depending on which one you want to remember, actually depends to the person as well. If you want to remember the thing, you will definitely remember it, right? So the information goes to your sensory memory. Things that grab your attention will be stored at your short-term memory, and then you you will store the information that you want to keep for your knowledge in your long-term memory, and later on you will recall the knowledge which will require time when you store it in short-term memory for you to use it. Okay, so usually for system, for UI, for this one, that's why you need to understand your user. Um, so you refer back to your persona once again. So any system that requires the user to recall information from the LTM will slow them down. Like um, there are some people like you were asked to you were asked like if we go back to campus later on. So when you come to the campus, you are asked to key in your date of vaccination, for example, right? So your date of vaccination, you once remember it, it's stored in the long-term memory. So maybe you can't recall, so you need to check your MySejahtera and you check when was the date you were vaccinated. So um, that's why, like any system, like that's like in real life, right? So, for example, like in a system, what example I can give you, like you need to key in information for your you are signing up for a website, and you will ask a question about like similar thing like things that you don't remember all the time, like your birth cert birth cert number, for example. Okay, your birth cert number, you once you once remember it, but it's stored in your long-term memory, so you need to recall it and you need time to recall it. So things like that, you need to like look into your system when you're designing your UI. You need to maybe eliminate those memory that needs the user to access their long-term memory. Okay, so depending on your system, which one you want to take into consideration. Okay, so like short-term memory also can happen like when you are like talking to your mom, for example. You're talking to your mom, right? Then suddenly you want to drink water. You want to talk about to your mom about your midterm test, for example, right? But then you decided to go to the kitchen and get some water and drink. But then you go back to your mother, then you forgot what you want to say. Okay, I believe all of you have experienced that you want to say something, but then you do other things, and you come back to it, and you forgot what you want to say, right? Have you experienced that before?
Ah, yes.
All the time. So
I
things
think all the time lah.
Kau lupa. Okay. So things like this can happen depending on how how you live your life. Okay. What I'm saying is not necessarily true. Maybe like you have too many things in your mind, like you want to know how to ace this game, for example. You want to know how to like do the assignment for this course, how to start the assignment for this course, how to do the practical for this course, for example lah. Okay. So you have so many things in your mind, so that's why if your mind is overloaded, your STM will also be affected, right? So like you are not focused now. You're not focused. Kan? Usually when you are not focused, you will not remember. But it can be frustrating at times when you really want to talk about the thing that you want to say, but you can't remember what is it about. So those things also like those you need to understand for this course. It want you to understand that human capabilities in terms of cognition, memory lah. Okay, memory. We have all these limitation. Okay, so that's for memory. So before we proceed to the next one, we take five. Can we do that?
Okay.
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 Okay. Okay, can you continue?
Okay.
Okay, so we continue, yeah, to the next part. So this we have discussed on memory, human memory. So now we look go to the next part of the human cognition, the recognition versus recall. Okay, so these two, um, we have it's different. It's different. Recognition is different than recall. So usually, we use recognition when we look at a graphic, right? So usually for common base interfaces, CLI, like our SQL Plus, right? For our database class, it will require you to recall a name or command. Okay, so a CLI, command line interface, usually require you to recall a name or a command for you to get what you want, right? For like for our database class, you use certain query to get certain result that you want. So that is recall. We need to recall. So recognition here refers to GUI. Okay, so UI, graphical user interface, usually provide visually best options. So a CLI was heavily used previously when we don't have GUI yet. So GUI is much better, much better, like it's more user friendly to the user, so that user have a visually best options for them to use the system. So it helps the users to see or to understand what's the system for. So for example, like web browser usually provide list of visited URLs. If you enable this, the last visited URLs, the song titles that you search in YouTube, in Spotify, in Jokes, and in other platform. So this recognition, the recognition of the list, like example here, this support a recognition memory. Okay, so as for recall usually you need to rehearse it. Okay, you need to do it many times for you to remember the command, right? So if you only just do it one time, it high chance that you will not remember what's the command, what's the full command. And CLI also very sensitive. Like some is very sensitive, some is not sensitive. So if you like type the command incorrectly, you will get error, right? But for GUI, it's very straightforward. So actually for SQL also, I take example for our database class here. SQL Plus, we using SQL Plus. We use CLI, command line interface, because that one is free. We actually have another platform that we can use SQL to query for our database using GUI. We also have that, but that one is paid lah. Okay, it's paid. So that one is a software, another software. So for our database class, we use SQL Plus, the CLI, for us to do the queries and all, right? So the difference between recognition and recall, usually recall, we want to recall name, we recall the command that we want to enter into the command line. So recognition, we recognize the items, okay? So here in this example, back to this example, so let's say that this user has visited the website Amazon.com previously. So it will provide you with the personalized homepage, includes all a list of recently viewed items. So this one also in Google Chrome. Google Chrome also do the same. If you, but actually you can do settings, like if you don't want to show your recently viewed item, you can remove it from your uh, browser. You can do that. But some user, like me also, actually for my personal laptop, I prefer to have the recently viewed items, because usually I will go back to the recently viewed item in the future. So I don't want to like keep typing in the web browser to get to where I want to go, right? So maybe you also the same. Maybe you put in you enable the your browser to remember what you accessed previously, right? Something like this, lah. So um, we cannot remember everything. Okay, human cannot remember everything, right? So if you think that we can remember everything, no, we don't. We are not able. Human are not able to remember everything that we have. Same similar to what we see. Not everything we see we can keep in our memory. Okay. So the context is very important in affecting memory, like where and when. So let's say your first day to campus. You all have not gone to the new campus, right? Like really go there and go in and look at the classes. Not yet, kan?
At the counter only.
Counter only, the lobby only. Me also,
Yeah, lobby.
the lobby only library and nearby. Library is at first floor, ka? I don't know where's the library. I only go there for interview last year. One time only, like in front of the counter only. Okay. So that's my memory because that's my first time, right? So you might remember your campus at Tayusi in KK during your first visit because that is what you want to remember. Like, oh, the first time I was here, the thing was like this, right? So maybe the next you go there, the situation like changed. Maybe the in the library also like the placement, or maybe they change the position, the layout due to the 2 meter gap or whatsoever. So maybe you will not be able to recognize the things that you don't know where to go because previously, like you go to row A to get book A. The next time you came, maybe they change, right? So your memory like kacau sudah, like you don't know. Oh, it was here before, but it was not here anymore. Okay, so usually we recognize we recognize things much better when we use visual, right? So that's why in UI, when you want to design your system, right? Try to include more figure than text. Okay. So previously, like what when we study the website kan last week. So uh, maybe like for website, depending on on your persona, depending on your persona, depending on the user, maybe they prefer text, maybe they prefer figure. Okay, but it, it's already been proven that humans are very good at remembering visual rather than text. Okay, so maybe you will not recognize me when I go to campus. Like when I see you face to face, also I will not recognize you. Okay, because I've just seen you once during our first class when I asked you to on your webcam, and I can only see your profile picture, which might not be the same when what I see face to face. Okay, so depending on the person's memory, so usually we will prefer GUI rather than CLI. Okay, so but we human are better at remembering things in images than words. What do you think? Do you? Misty, you're like okay, like you're gaming, right? You have characters, right? So you can remember the character. Sometimes you remember the face of the character, but you can't remember the name. Got such thing in game. I think got characters. Am I? Is it?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I I know about gaming, but I don't play game. Okay, so I know you have like of those characters and they have names, but maybe you might have you might experience that you know the name but you don't know how it look like. Okay, and also the other way around, but usually it's the other way around. You remember the visual, you can remember the image, but you cannot recall the name. Okay, so when you design for memory, okay, so these are we come to the guideline. So we want to use recognition rather than recall. Okay, so recognition, it will help users memories with simple procedures to complete tasks. So when you design your interface for your system, you promote recognition rather than recall. Okay, so you use recognition. So how do you use recognition when you design for interfaces? So you might want to provide your users with many ways of encoding digital information into the long-term memory so that they remember where they have stored them. Like for example, you categorize things according to color, you do flag, or you do time stamping. Time stamping like today you put in like this week you put in one category, week two you put in one category, like similar with what I do in like in Google Classroom, right? I upload lecture bi-weekly so that you know where to go. Okay. I'm not sure if it's useful for you. I think it's useful for you. So that you know, like week five, now is week five. You also need to be alert uh, about the week time, right? You need to know what week are we now. So when I put in the Google Classroom, I upload week five material so that you know the upcoming week is this week, week five or week six or week seven. Okay, so those should help you to remember, should help you to recognize what are the things that you need to take action for the upcoming class. Okay, so this is an example of recognition. So this one is calendar. I think yeah, calendar events. So you can put in you categorize the events according to colors, but some people does not prefer to do this flagging events. Like me, I don't use this. Some people use this because sometimes the colors also make you confused, right? If it's too many also it will make you confused, right? So depending on which one, what are the things that you want to provide for your user, okay, in terms of recognition. Okay, so like here, birthday is blue, even like maybe this one green is um, national event, and then meetings, right? So you divide the information according to colors. So next guideline for memory, we have chunking. Okay, chunking. I think it's CHUN. Let me check. Hold on. Chunking. Is that how we spell chunking? Chunk. CHUNKING kan? Chunk,
Yeah, no C.
right? Okay. So let me just kasih betul. Hold on. Nanti confused. No C. I did not realize that. Chunking. Okay, so another guideline for design for memory. Okay, so you refer to memory. So you might want to apply chunking information. Okay, so more information will be easy to remember if the items are chunked, like put in a category. So chunking here means grouping together pieces of information, like what we see in the previous slide um, about grouping or chunking. You put in pieces of information into sections so that um, they they form one item to be remembered, like personal details and then the password and then retrieve password, right? So you try to use a chunking in your interface design, okay, so that your information on your system can be remembered. So specific information will be idle and must be memorized for later use. So you can use this chunking process in your UI design. So let's say, for example, like this. Okay, so this is Miller's magic number, the 7 plus minus 2. So we have like this information here. So which one is better? When you chunk it into this view, you can like memorize it better. Am I correct? Like the second row here,
Yes.
and so and also with this. So look at the without chunking data and with chunking. Okay, so it's more easy for you to remember the patient ID when it is chunked like this. Okay, the name, the date of birth instead of like this, right? So you can see here how how this chunking can affect your memory. Okay, so apply chunking for your interface design. And then the last part, I think this is the last part. So mental model, okay, mental model of of a human, okay, still under cognition. So now we want to talk about mental models, okay. So mental models here refers to how people think of how things work. Like, how does your car start? How does an ATM machine work? How does your computer boot? So this mental model will allow human or people to make prediction about how things will work. Okay. So users they develop an understanding of system by learning and using it. So they need to use it in order for them to learn how to use it, right? So they need to use it, try to use it, and learn how to navigate your system, right? So here knowledge is often described as mental model. So knowledge of how you use the system. Knowledge here is referring to how you use the system, means what to do next. Like if you like open like parking system, caravan parking system. So when you open parking system, so what do I do with this system? Okay, so the user should be able to know what to do next when they see your system. Okay, so here about the knowledge when using a mental model. Also, you want to know or you know what to do with unfamiliar system. Unfamiliar system means you never seen the system before, and unexpected situation. So this is where you know how the system works. Okay, so people they can make inferences using mental models on how to carry out tasks, like especially for those system that is unfamiliar to them. So this mental model is referring to the knowledge of how to use the system and how the system works. Okay, so you need to create a system that confirm or that can support the user's mental models. So um, so you can improve the user's mental model so that they can more accurately reflect your system. So like what you think, right? You as the designer, what you think might not be the same as what the user think. Okay, so the designer have their own mental model and the user have their own mental model. Okay, and then we have the system here. So that's why you really need to understand your user. Okay, you design your interface, you design your computer system according to the user's mental model, and you combine it with your mental model to come out with a system. Okay, so that's why you really need to understand your user mental model, how they perceive a system that's unfamiliar to them. Okay, there's a quote here by this researcher. The biggest limitation on the mental models theory is to capture and validate this model. So previous studies shown that these models, mental models theory, are built on the fly, like on the spot. Okay, so moreover, other studies have shown that asking a subject about his mental model can modify the mental model itself. So when you refer to mental model, you can do like That's why you can do interview, right? You can do interview like on the spot, how you want the system to be like what do you prefer on the system. Okay, so you can ask on the fly here means you can like interview on the spot, or you can do observation, right? So let's now look at the design for mental model. Okay, so this is a guideline for mental model. So we can use metaphors, okay, or the transfer effect. So these metaphors, in this case, that is used in human-computer interaction, is to describe unfamiliar concepts or system like a computer in terms of familiar items like files and folders. So metaphor here, you give something that is known to identify something else on the system, and this one is to be illustrated to be presented to the world. Okay, so let's look at this example here. Okay, so this is a metaphor where you use something that is known, our file folder, and then you present it in your system as this item, this icon, right? You illustrate this in icon. So whenever a user look at this, so the user will know there's something inside. Okay, there's something inside similar to this one. So you have a file folder. Usually you will have file inside, right? So this is a metaphor. The way you use, the way you design your mental model according to metaphor. Okay, but there is a limitation on metaphor. There's a limitation on this, that metaphor, it does not scale very well. It only works well for a simple process, like in a simple program. And it can fail, and the process will grow in size, or it will be more complex. And sometimes it's misleading as well. So let's say if the user does not have the same cultural background as the designer, like when you use your own cultural background as the designer, you use your own mental model to design your system, it is easy for the metaphors to fail. Okay, so example for misleading, like when you see this icon, right? You know it's about like aeroplane, it's about flight, but you don't know if it's to check flight arrival information or to make airline reservation. Okay, so this kind of icon, it can be misleading. This kind of metaphor can be misleading. And also if you like, if you use file icons, something like this, it can be too clumsy to use effectively, actually depending on the person now, right? So some user, they like to group their files in their system like this, like each category have one folder, or each category, they organize their folder like this. Okay, and some icons might not be the same, like what you have in Windows is different, in Mac OS is different, and Linux is different. Okay, so if you all have gone to Aposta before the pandemic, where they have their computer, right? Have you all have experience opening the PC at Aposta?
Ah, yeah.
Pernah kah? Pernah
Uh,
kan? Pernah? Pernah kah?
Yes.
Aposta. So they are using Linux, a free operating system. So the icon you see also a little bit different than what you see at home. Yeah, I think you noticed that as well. And also the icons on the web browser also different. I can't remember the name of the browser already. Okay, so that's an example of how when like, because at home you already use Windows, right, all the time. Then you go when you go to Aposta, then you open, oh, I want to watch like YouTube, for example, right? So you open the computer at Aposta, then you open like, where is the web browser? The web browser icon also you're not familiar, but how do you know like this icon here is what is it for? So you will look at the label, right? So you should see web browser there. Then you, oh, this is the web browser. I think it's Penguin kau punya icon, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot the name already. So you click on it and then you can go to the browser. And similar at your tab also, like your search tab also, it's different than what you see previously, right? So that's why that's an example of a limitation on metaphors, because every user will not have the same experience as the others, and also they might not have the same background as the designer. Okay, so that's why you need to focus on your user mental model when you do your system, when you create your system. Yeah. So here, I last slide sudah. Okay, so here as another, this is another like discussion on metaphor. So you might have a different cultural association with your user. So like for example, some place as when you look at the color red, right? Color red, you automatically think that it's representing danger. Okay, Farah. Oh, habis sudah juga nih. Last slide already. Okay. And then green, green, when we think about green, you think about traffic light, right? Pero kok di mana? Penampang pa? Hujan, jangan hujan juga. Belum sampai di Wiyang lagi. Okay, like want to rain already lah here. So, Inobong. Ito, Inobong. Too heavy ka? Scary. Drop already here, manggung sudah. So, like different places will have different perception towards things, right? Like for light switches in America, in US, if it's down, it's off. But in Britain, if down is on for them, right? So similarly, like our plug, right? Plug China punya different head, the plug to the socket. We have different type of plug according to countries, and then like in some place you don't have any switches at all. Okay, you just like you don't have switch like on off. You just plug in, it directly give you power. And then like white color. When you think about white color in China, it's for funeral, but in America, white color is for wedding, right? So that's why you need to understand your persona better for you to design your system. Okay, and then another example is that color indication in stock market. Market, another typo here. Market, yeah. So in China, if it's up, it's in red. If it's down, it's green. But in America, the stock market they presented, if it's green, it's up, means the stock market is going up. And if it's green, if it's red, it's going down. This one also typo already. Okay, so you need. That's why you need to really understand your user. Okay, based on your persona, make sure you really understand your persona, their background, and try to imagine their mental model, and that way you will be able to imagine how to do or how to make your prototype later on. Okay, so that's all for this chapter. Do you have any question for this chapter? Cognitive capabilities of human cognition. So far, okay.
Okay.
All right. So we still have time. I give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes. 10 minutes break. At 4, I want to talk a little bit on about our midterm test. Okay. I'll be back. 10 minutes. In 10 minutes
Okay.
time. Okay. Okay, students, can you continue? Are you all here?
Yeah.
Yes, I cannot hear.
Masih hujan kah Ben?
Yeah, still heavy rain here.
Okay. This one just a short session just to remind you. Submission for your proposal. You can already submit your proposal. Turn in by 20th of February, by end of this week. Yeah, your proposal need to be submitted. So check again your proposal, see if you need to improve, if you need to do, if you need to add on or anything, and then don't forget to submit. The due date is this Sunday. Okay. And then for your midterm test, we will conduct midterm test during our lecture session. It will be online. Lecture session week 7. Okay, so lecture session week 7 would be bulan 3 sudah kan? Mana? So lecture session week 7 would be, now is week 5, 6, 7. Ada minggu. Week 7 is Wednesday, 2nd of March. Okay, 2nd of March during our lecture session.
Okay.
Okay, so okay
Topic
kan?
cover how much?
Topic will cover from chapter 1 until chapter 5. Okay, so for your midterm test, it carries 30% of your coursework marks, right? So the question, how the question will look like, it look like a question, got question mark. The question is, you will have one question only. So most probably it will be a case study. Okay, case study, like you are given a system and then you need to do the analysis. Okay, so this is just like some idea on how it will look like. Okay, so you can also I think you can access the online repository, library, online library also. If you want to have like you want to have a glance of how your midterm test will look like, you can check the past year's question for final exam, similar to that, but it's more simple. Okay, it's more like, because it's only 30 marks, right? So it's much simpler than your final exam. Definitely simpler than your final exam. Your final exam is 100 marks. Your midterm test will be 30%, 30 marks, and represent 30% of your midterm test marks. Okay, your assignment is 70 marks, 70%. So 70 plus 30 is 100% for your coursework. So your marks for your final exam also 100 marks, but later converted to 50%. Coursework 50%, final exam 50%. Okay. So I repeat, for your midterm test will be conducted in week 7 during lecture time. It will be online. So it should be the format, how we will conduct it, similar to your FOA. Okay, similar to your experience doing FOA in the previous semester. We will use the Google Classroom that we have now for your MTT, and then I will open assignment and you will type your answer in Google Docs. Okay, so only one question, but the question will be structured like I got 1A, 1B, 1C. I'll see, but the question total marks will be 30 marks. Okay. What else? So it should be no problem, right? Because we do it during lecture. So I should be no problem to conduct. So any question for midterm test? Cover from chapter 1 until chapter 5, but most likely the question will be something like case study. Okay, you're given a system like what we do in tutorial lah. maybe you given a screenshot or a product, and then you answer the question according to your opinion, but of course based on the concept and the theories that we have discussed in our lectures for chapter 1 until chapter 5.
Do we need to search online for example again?
No. That one tutorial lah, bukan lah. You don't have to like give screenshot or what. No,
Okay.
just give your opinion based on the question. Okay, so like I said just now, you can access your online library, and then you search for BIT 2203 final exam. You can refer to the final online assessment. Okay, you can check the previous, maybe the previous 2 semester. Let me know if you cannot access it, if you cannot find it in your online library. Yeah, but maybe later I share lah. I'll share the question in Google Classroom. Remind me if I forgot. But if you have already, that's good lah. Okay. So any more question for your midterm test?
No question.
So far, okay. Ah? Noel, okay.
I think he DC.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so you still have like maybe like 25 minutes for the class. So I want you to go and check again your proposal for your submission, and try to see what else you have not included in your proposal, and you can press the submit button if you want to, if you're ready to submit it. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for your participation today and your attendance. I appreciate your attendance. I'll talk to you again tomorrow afternoon for our practical session. Okay, so go do your proposal, and don't left the session yet. Okay, so use the time to look back at your proposal and see what information you need to add on. Okay, so I will tell you when you can leave the session. Right, so I will be here if you have any question. Thank you.
Okay, miss.
Vera, kau punya proposal lah.
Oh, yes.
Kau punya proposal macam tidak berjalan loh, macam tidak bergerak nih.
Oh yeah, that one. I type it in my
Oh, in
uh
different document.
yes, and then I paste it there so easier for me to check it later.
Oh, wah, nanti kau update ah.
Okay, yeah, can.
Alright, thank you. Did anyone raise hand just now? All tekan. I hear ding. No one. Did anyone raise hand? Yes, Noel. Maybe accidentally kan? Okay, class, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much once again for your attendance, and don't forget to make progress for your assignment. Yeah, I'll see you again tomorrow during practical. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Miss. Thank you.
Yes.